Today, and we have somebody new, and I'm very excited. So our friend Lisa Rice, who you know I cannot get enough of, and I get to see next month, yeah, it's still August, next month in Sacramento for Chef AJ's thing, Lisa Rice. We're always talking about WeHeal.Health and the doctors she works with, and ta-da, they're here today, Dr. Pulde and Dr. Lederman. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you, and we're going to have a great conversation on, and this was their topic idea, and I love it. You know what to do, and why aren't you doing it, right? Because I think they have some great concepts and ways of approaching things that I don't see as much in some of the other doctors. So welcome, and please introduce yourselves.
Thank you so much for having us today. I'm so excited to be here. Lisa speaks so highly of you regularly. My name is Alona. I'm a family physician and passionate about nutrition and lifestyle medicine, and now also connection medicine, which we can get into a little bit today. And I'm really happy to be here.
Yay! And I love that. I love that turn of phrase, coined a term, connection medicine. That sounds very magical in a good way to me. So I can't wait to hear more.
Yay.
And hi, I'm Matthew Lederman. I'm internal medicine trained and then nutrition lifestyle focused, and most recently certified trainer of nonviolent communication, or better compassionate communication. And yes, we are really working hard together to get the word out, like we did 20 years ago about plant-based diets before they were mainstream. We're working hard now to get this new concept of connection medicine out there, which I think will become mainstream, but we're a little early in the curve, so hopefully your viewers will get to enjoy that early entry into this. We're excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think early is good, right? That's when all the juicy things happen. And I see a lot of you are watching, but I do not see a lot of comments. So in case you thought I just wasn't going to talk about the weather, it's hot. It's cooler than it's been, but we don't have the house open because they're installing fiber, like Google Fiber by the house. So I'm a little bit ridiculously excited. If somehow we go away, they probably dug somewhere they weren't supposed to dig. So I want to know where you guys are. Everybody who's watching, did you make it through a lot of these weathers? There's been a lot of fires in Canada still going on. There was a hurricane in California, which sounds like I'm making it up. And Alona and Matt, you guys went through the hurricane, right? Because you're in Los Angeles.
We sure did. And a hurricane and an earthquake all in the same weekend. So it was fun times.
Do you sometimes feel like we're in this really weird bad disaster movie that we didn't sign up to be and we're not getting paid to be in? 'Cause I feel like there's lots of little things happening that make me a little nervous, which is also why I like kind of your approach, and maybe define connection medicine for me and everybody at home.
Yeah. So connection medicine is really an opportunity to connect, beginning with yourself. A lot of people hear about connection, hear about the importance of getting out and socializing and being among other people and being in person and the benefit of that. And there is huge benefit in that. And beyond that, huge benefit and opportunity to connect to yourself for the first time authentically. Most of us live in kind of a state of, whether it's survival mode or artificial harmony, where we're just trying to get along, just trying to make it through the day and check off the boxes. Okay, I tried to eat healthy, I tried to exercise, I went to work, I picked up, the kids, I walked the dog, I made whatever it is. And we're checking boxes, but we're never really connecting to, how does it feel for me to go through my day? What do I actually enjoy? Do I enjoy any of it? And so through connection medicine, and the important piece about it is, without that connection to self, it makes it really hard to make the nutrition and lifestyle changes that we want to make and stick with.
So it's really important to say that it helps us on many fronts. Connection is really important to make life to really bring out the joy in life instead of focusing on getting to your baseline. If that was mediocre, can we get well above that? We don't want to just get back to your baseline. We get all the way to wonderful. So it brings out joy. It's one of those keys. The other piece, though, is that it's connected to physical health. So not only does it bring out joy, and like Alona said, it makes it easier to do the things that you want to do, right? Because it's aligning your values with your actions. But it also is connected to physical health, where we eat a plant-based diet. One of the major impacts of a plant-based diet is decreases inflammation in our body. What people don't know as well is that disconnection also stimulates the same pro-inflammatory cytokines that cause all sorts of diseases or support or fuel diseases. So they can support pro-inflammatory cytokines, support insulin resistance, skin changes like psoriasis, other autoimmune diseases. It makes irritable bowel syndrome worse, headaches, chronic pain, right? Things like when we talk about some of our interventions, like for example, expressive writing, which is connecting to yourself and connecting more importantly to the pain inside of you that's been unexpressed, that suppression stimulates inflammation. There's studies that show that expressive writing affects things like blood pressure and wound healing and lung function and asthma and pain and fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis from expressive writing. So we're trying to get it out there that's not this fluffy stuff anymore. It's just as important as people thought 20 years ago. Plant-based diets was this, vegan, fluffy, hug your brother, type of thing. And now it's a medical intervention. Well, that's what we're trying to get across with connection medicine.
I love all of that. So, and we haven't talked about this before too, so I'm getting to react. I've read through some of your book as well, which you guys can get on Amazon, of course. I'll come back and drop a link to it later. But because I love so many things about this, but I stress out a lot. And so my people know I just finished the Dr. McDougall program. And so even just eliminating all oils, because we were pretty much like no oil in the house, except for some vegan junk food that Cheryl was eating. Now Cheryl actually got off all her diabetes medicine, except for insulin, in 4 days, and then 3 days later she was off of her insulin. It's crazy. So and I even said, because I went into the program expecting not to lose any weight, because we were eating pretty close. I lost 7.5 pounds, and I told my health specialist, Stacy, I'm like, I would think I was lying if I was you, right? Because it's amazing what tiny little things can affect these giant changes. And it's so timely that you're talking about how disconnect and stuff can affect inflammation. And my buzzword, and I'm not a doctor or play one on TV, but I always think of cortisol. I think I get stressed out, I make cortisol, and therefore I get inflamed. So you can correct me on that, and please do, because that's probably the baby version of seeing that, if it's even true. But I like the way you're talking. Your body produces these things that definitely aggravates conditions. And so I've been trying to catch up. I was on that program for 12 days, and then Saturday, I taught a class, which was a 3-hour class. So I cleaned the kitchen, taught the class, cleaned the kitchen, made some more food, had people over for dinner. So I was 10 hours in the kitchen cleaning and cooking. And then the next day, I felt stiff. I felt swollen and inflamed. I felt, a lot of things. And I'm sure I also let myself get a little bit perfectionistic, which try really hard not to do. But so what you just said to me explained a lot of what happened, and then I just kind of took to my bed. I gave myself a full-on rest day on Sunday. So I was like, I can just stay in bed, I can read, I can do some other stuff, and then I felt a lot better. Part of me felt, I should be doing better, right? I had made all this food. We don't have to cook all week. I was like, I haven't walked in several days, and every time my mind slipped to this, you're a naughty person, I tried to go, no, you're a person taking care of themselves, because I'm 58 years old. I'm not going to bounce back like I was 20. And so And I love the writing because I've kept journals a lot during my life. Tell us some other techniques. What if someone doesn't like writing? Like, would meditative walks or meditation or something like that, are there other alternatives, or do you feel like we start with this writing and then we build into these different techniques?
You brought up so much, so I want to just step a second back and just celebrate you for noticing, that you did all of this stuff. I'm imagining it was Saturday, and then felt the need, connected to yourself, to say, you know what, I need a day to just kind of be in bed and take it easy. And that self-connection is super successful and super hard for people to do, because what happens is just what you said. So many people have that same experience, the voice in their head. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. You should be doing this. Every should that we actually listen to and respond to out of obligation, we increase the stress, the cortisol, the inflammation that's taking place in our body. When you're able to say to yourself, hey, you know what? No way. I need a day. I'm going to self-care. You're sending just the opposite. This signal of safety, this anti-inflammatory response, that just like you're taking care of yourself, your body's taking care of itself and doing what it needs to do to heal, recover, recoup. So
That's
celebration.
such a revelation. So if you could kind of say that one more time, so everybody put on your listening cap like you're in kindergarten. I want you guys to hear this, because this is the first time I've heard this and it's really come in. Like you hear a lot of things, but you don't take it all the way in. But I love the way you just gave me permission to feel okay about staying in my jammies all day, because I'm always team jammy. But if you could repeat that one more time for everyone.
I absolutely can. And I'm even going to put it into more context. So we are created to scan for danger. And how that worked for our ancestors is they needed to be able to see the tiger and to know immediately to run. Not to start thinking, well, should I? Do they look hungry? Do they look tired? Am I in danger? No, we're built to scan for danger. We're built to go into fight or flight, right? And so that's how we're made. We have to actively shut that down and give ourselves a signal of safety. I am okay. I am safe, right? Now, in the past, fight or flight was only temporary. We ran away from the tiger. We ran into our cave. We got to relax, recoup, and then, come down. So the stress went up. It went, and then it came back down. Right now, in our heads is where most of our stress lives. We're not actually seeing the tiger. We're imagining the tiger. We're thinking maybe one day we'll see the tiger. And that elicits the same response, the same stress response as if we actually saw the tiger and we're running away from it. Okay? So that's how our body is programmed. So every one of those shoulds is the anticipation of that tiger. I should get up and I should force myself to do this, and I should, and I should, and I should. All of those are the danger signals. All of those elevate stress.
And think about each should as a potato chip. So every time you're eating a potato chip,
I'm sorry. Right? That is awesome. That's a perfect analogy for those, because I know most of the people watching now are whole food, plant-based, no oil, right? So it's like we don't look, well, if we look at the potato chip, we're kind of side-eyeing it and hoping not to eat it, right? So let's say if there are no potato chips in this house, and there's good reason, but it's true. If I thought about taking self-care the same way I think about how I choose my food, and so that a should is a potato chip, that's gold.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad that's helpful, because we don't want to make the shoulds go away, because that's the other thing is we teach nonviolent communication, which is empathy. It's founded in empathy. And the key is to empathize with the part of you that's saying the should and the part of you that's fighting the should. And the part of you that's saying you should is trying to take care of you. and using voices that you probably heard since childhood, from your parents and teachers and everybody who's trying to form you into this good person, right? Or this healthy person. So we can thank the should. But then we can say, hey, that should is putting a lot of pressure and fear into my body, which is not good for my health. Can I value those needs but do it differently? So give me an example of a should. Hey, you should get out of bed and exercise. Okay, thank you, should. I'm not going to take it in like the potato chip. I'm going to say, what's the empathy underneath, which is you're trying to take care of my health and well-being. I value that. Thank you so much. But I also have this need for rest right now. So I'm going to hold this need for movement and health and exercise, and I'm going to honor my need for rest. And we're going to take care of that other need for health and movement later. And I'm going to put on the calendar so I can show you that I'm taking care of that. I'm not going to forget it because I know you just want to take care of my body. Thank you very much. You see how that feels different than either listening to the should or trying to block the should out?
Yes, I see it's completely different. And in fact, I'm very good about communicating outside the house that way with other people. If someone has something they're going to say, like, I have a theory, you're either super nice outside the house or inside the house. Like if you've ever worked, I'm an outside the house. So Cheryl's the one who takes the brunt of things, but then we try to work through that too. If I'm going to be snarky, it's going to happen at home. And so I think that's how I'm looking at it. So a lot of times I treat myself and my conversations because I'm at home, right? And so that's another way to think about it too. So one of the things Dr. Lim from the McDougall program said to me that was so powerful, he goes, what I really see and what I want is for that part of you that you want to cut out and get rid of, that you love on it and make it a part of you. And I think what you just said was a how-to step-by-step version to actually do that.
And that's powerful. I love that you named that, because that's the key. Is a lot of the healing programs that we really resonate with them, which is, hey, really, self-compassion and honor yourself and be accepting. But then the question is, well, I was trained and educated to think in this way and to talk to myself in this way. So we need to educate ourselves on how to think and talk in a way that's more connecting. And that's the beauty of nonviolent communication. That is the reason that you have two medical doctors focusing on nonviolent communication. It's like, why the heck are these doctors talking about communication? Because that is the secret sauce. That's the how, so that you can connect to these voices and all the other parts that are getting in the way of your success. And those parts, when that happens, when you should yourself, you mobilize into fight or flight and you stimulate inflammation. When you connect to yourself with empathy the way I did, you actually secrete anti-inflammatory cytokines. Those are the good guys. So what I want people to understand is that that's the value. It is not fluff. It is so important to add that in.
And it's I think a recipe for success. We talked before, actually, we started the podcast, right, Kathy, about how you're in it for the long haul. You're not in it for the short, whatever that reward is, right? And so that is the key. When we can connect authentically to ourselves, when we can show compassion for ourselves, is when we can connect to why things aren't working. So for example, right, we have a craving. How many of us try and stuff that craving, try and fight it with willpower, try to put it aside, try to convince ourselves that broccoli will taste just as good as that potato chip or just as good as that chocolate cookie? No, it will not. And the more we tell ourselves that, the less we own and honor, I'm having a craving. What do I do about that? Right? And then say, okay, I have compassion for the fact that everybody has cravings. They don't go away just because we go on a plant-based diet. They will not go away. So how do I honor that craving in a way that also meets my needs for health and my goals for, being here for the next 40, 50 years with vibrancy and health and wellness? And then in that compassion is where we can open up all these strategies. Oh, I'm going to make a healthy dessert. I'm going to, make today I'm going to make a calorie dense meal. and that's going to satisfy me. What is it? Or maybe it's not food. I'm going to go out and hang out with friends. I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to take a walk outside. Whatever that is. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. And I was even thinking, because like part of my deal is that if someone's having a craving, me or Cheryl, I can make something that will fulfill that. So that's kind of what I do. So like I've not been wanting fried foods, but I've been really missing crunchy foods because it's about a month. That's about when you start missing something crunchy. So we made some air pop popcorn, and we found out this tip. I had never heard. Someone put pickle juice in the bottom and air popped it. And it sticks the salty flavor to it. It was brilliant. So I'm going to be telling the world about that. And, in the past, popcorn could be a little bit of a danger food for me, but it's movie popcorn that's a danger food for me. I think my body gets all that hydrogenated fats and is like, yeah. But for this, I was like, that was nice. And it didn't leave me with anything like that. But sometimes, like when the summer gets too hot, and I find, when I'm uncomfortable or feel trapped, it used to be in the winter I felt trapped. Now it's in the summer that I feel trapped, that I'm more likely to want to have some sort of soothing foods or soothing something. So, yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. And like, from doing the McDougall program, I'm trying to think a little bit ahead. So like we always have baked potatoes, cooked sweet potatoes, baby potatoes, and rice, and usually a stew or two. And any leftovers go in the freezer in a container to heat up to eat right now. So stew and rice, soup and whatever. So that if I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm hot, I'm whiny, I don't feel good, I want to take a walk, but I can't go take a walk, then for me, this is silly, but I've been putting sweet potato and pumpkin spice in my oatmeal. So I'm having my fall oatmeal, and I'm here pretending it is fall for all I can do. And that really works. Or like I love sweets. Sweets is in the past, but like having oatmeal in the morning and having my fruit and having my sweet there. So if I have oatmeal with fresh blueberries and lemon zest and a little bit of maple syrup, I feel like I had a muffin. Like that, it fulfills that little part in me that's like, no, we like something sweet in the morning instead of fighting it. Is that kind of what you're thinking of?
Absolutely, because you're connecting to how this is going to be something that you can do long term, right? And that means, you know what, right now I want something sweet. How do I make that something sweet healthy? Because healthy is important to me too, right? That self-connection is super important. And for you, like, I love that you put maple syrup in your oatmeal. There are so many people that would go, oh my gosh, that added sugar. But those are the little things, or the pickle juice that salts the popcorn. That's the thing that keeps you on this path, because you're actually you're finding joy in what you're doing versus the shoulds, the obligations, how many people, that's the thing. Like when I was talking about checking off the boxes, there are so many people that, they're getting the message, oh, right now, kale is the healthiest food you could eat. So everybody's on a kale binge, right? But some people don't like kale. And so it's like, well, I don't like kale. What do? I have to eat this kale. No, you don't have to eat the kale. You can eat the broccoli. You can eat the bok choy. You can eat the cauliflower, right? But that's a check-in with yourself. That's a really small example of how sometimes, we're so disconnected, and as a result, unable to sustain. Because if you're not finding pleasure, it's in everything that we do, right? If we're not finding the joy in it and we're gritting our teeth and bearing it, there's only so long that we can do it until we get sick, until we, just lose our basket or whatever it is, and it's not sustainable.
Because remember, when you're gritting your teeth and bearing it, there's needs of yours that aren't being met, right? And that's, I think, really important, right? If all of your needs are met, you're going to effortlessly do it. So you got to self-reflect and say, well, what is it that I'm not enjoying here? What need of mine is not being met? For some people, it's maybe ease. They're like, oh, I've been telling myself I got to cook a 10-course meal 3 times a day. And I thought that was the way to be healthy, and I had to do that. So when they're gritting their teeth and trying to cook again the 3rd time that day, you realize, oh, you're needing a little more ease. Well, how can we do that and still be healthy? And that sometimes is a little information. Hey, you don't have to cook, a 3-course meal or 10-course meal. But you see what I'm saying? Like this is where that self-connection that a lot of people don't have that muscle yet is so important, because we value as a society doing, right? Someone says, what'd you do today? Right? That's what they care about, right? What'd you get done? Right? You think about success and the amount of what you got done, right? Versus, oh, today I connected with myself and I loved myself, and people look at you with cross-eyed. They're like, what are you talking about? That was a successful day because you checked in with yourself and loved yourself. And, to me, that we have to shift that a little bit. And I'm not saying you won't be productive, because if you trust that it's in your body, all the wisdom is in there, it's going to want to do things. But there's things it's not going to want to do too. And it's all about meeting your needs and checking in what that is. So the thing that I think people need to start with now, I recommend setting a timer on your watch, and 3 times a day for that timer to go off and for you to check in and just say, how's my head feeling? How's my heart feeling? How's my gut feeling? Right? That's just an example of stopping for a minute and checking in with your body. You could also check in, hey, the next time I notice resistance, I'm going to set my stopwatch for 60 seconds. Because a lot of times when there's resistance, like, what do I do? Do I force myself? How do I do it? I'm going to be bad. They think about, oh, if I don't do it now, I'm going to fall off the wagon. All sorts of anticipatory anxiety. It's a mess. So what I would say is, if you can just stop and hit your stopwatch for 60 seconds, just being aware of those moments is a big growth step. And then pausing and checking in is another big growth step.
I think a lot of people will hear this and say, yeah, but are you giving me permission to lean into cravings? Are you giving me permission to, when I check in, there's this fear that I'm going to fall off the wagon. But the reality is that willpower doesn't keep us on our path.
Right.
How many of us are, right? Those people that are running just on willpower, I can tell you 100% are not going to be successful.
And usually they're not, right? I have so many people that are telling me, well, if I do that, I'm going to fall, but they're still 50 pounds overweight, right? So I believe what they're concerned about is, if I know I'm not at my goal, but if I let go, I'm going to be 100 pounds overweight. So at least I'm only 50 pounds overweight.
I think that's
an illusion.
That's such a great point. And I will just bring that back, because I've had those feelings before too. And so before the pandemic, I worked with Howard Jacobson. I don't know if you know him, and Josh LaJohny. And so I was working with him kind of as a health coach. And so I had made a commitment that, I think I said 6 days a week I was going to walk 3 miles a day. And then I said to him, because and this is the silliest thing, but it's true, when it rains, I want to be in my house. Not because I'm afraid of the rain, because I love the rain. And I want to sit in my house and I want to enjoy it and listen to it. Like, it's one of my great joys to be home at a rainy day. And I said, so I don't want to walk. I don't want to walk tomorrow because I know it's going to rain. And he goes, well, what's going to happen if you don't walk? And I'm like, it's all going to go to pot. It's never, he's like, okay, so you don't walk one day, so what's going to happen is you're never walking again. I'm like, that's how it feels.
Right.
And I feel like that's what you just said. And then and for me, even just recognizing that and having a conversation with someone, and that someone could be yourself. And if you're not ready to kind of have that moderated conversation with yourself, I'm pro therapy too, or pro health coach. Have someone who can be supportive that can help you talk through those things. And I was just at a Dr. McDougall alumni conversation, and one of the things that we talked about, that I ended up saying, make sure you're going to the right well for what you want. Don't climb up to the mountain to get the bad tasting water. Because sometimes we want to go to our friend Bob, and Bob thinks what we're doing is silly, and Bob is a big barbecuer and he would never do that, right? You know, and it could be your brother, it could be your best friend, it could be whatever. Bob is not the person for me to talk about my touchy-feeliness with, right? I can still go to Bob's house, I can still have, you know, whatever relationship, but I'm going to go to Susie, who is also eating whole food plant-based, or maybe she's not even on the whole food plant-based wagon, but she's compassionate and she's going to accept me where I am. And so, because I think when I hear you talk, I'm like, oh my God, those are brilliant ideas, and I really do. And then I put myself back into like 2020 when I was sliding into a depression. And even though, you know, so all the shoulds were firing, but I couldn't move because I held my breath for about 4 months. And I've done books in 4 months. I can hold my breath and work 18 hours a day for a limited amount of time. So I was kind of like, just hold your breath. The pandemic will be over before you know it, right? And that didn't happen. And because of that, then I was like, whoa. What happened? Where am I? How did I get to this place? And I gained 30 pounds over the pandemic, basically trying not to pay attention to how I feel, right? So I think what you're saying is so important, and I think so many people, maybe more than ever before, experienced that during the pandemic if they didn't experience it before, because we've never been put in that situation. But the one thing I hope everyone takes out of what you said is take 1 minute, 3 times a day, and just check in. And maybe you check in, you're like, today is a breeze. Everything is awesome, and I feel great. And then maybe in the afternoon, you're like, you know, I'm really angry, and I'm not sure why. And let me see if I can figure out what's causing this. Am I angry at myself? Am I angry that it's summer? You know, some things we can't change and some things we can. So I love all that so much. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love the being part, right? Like instead of the doing, the being, and valuing the being, and then creating little skills to build that muscle. You could, every time you walk into a room, you could check, hey, what's going on in my heart? What's going on in my head? Or how does my gut feel, right? And the other thing is taking that time. If we can just slow down and check in and take some time, to me, that's so much more valuable to do that a minute, a few times a day, than to do a 20-minute meditation practice that you sort of do in isolation and then you go back into the real world, right? So to me, that's really important, is taking that meditation practice into your real life, right? So do that 1 minute, 3 times a day. When you're panicking because you see a craving, start your meditation practice right there. I'm seeing a craving, I'm panicking. Don't try and make the panic go away. Don't try and do something. You know that saying, don't just do something, stand there, right? That's the opposite, right? Don't just stand there, do something. We say, don't just do something, stand there. Okay, so stand there, check in with the craving. It's giving you information. It's trying to care for you. So that's what I want people to do right now would be, oh, I'm really wanting those potato chips. All right, take a deep breath. And don't say you can't have them or you can have them, right? That's focused on what do I do, right? Should I eat them? Should I not? Should. See, there's a should that got in there, and there's a what should I do? So I'm focused on doing and shoulding. Put that to the side, notice the craving, and then try and connect to the needs. Like you said, sometimes I'm just starving and I'm really wanting crunchy food, and for some reason for the last month I haven't eaten a crunchy thing at all. Sometimes it's, wow, I'm really depressed. I'm really sad right now. And I'm not used to being sad and being okay with being sad. So what I usually do when I'm sad is I go right to the fridge. And actually that makes sense because chewing and swallowing is actually stimulates the vagus nerve, which is calming to the body. But there's other ways to calm the body. But you see what I'm doing? Like I'm just taking that time to be with it, not to do, not to should.
I love that. And you guys have been seeing me behind the scenes scrambling around. I'm not getting my comments from YouTube, so I'm putting it on a different computer so I can see, because I was like, it's impossible that 50 people are watching and I have 1 comment. So I got a little nervous there. Apple says, these two docs are so compassionate. Glad to see them here for the conversation. I'm going to kind of, everybody saying hi and telling me about their weather like I asked, so they're so awesome. Oh, and someone, Apple mentioned again, artificial harmony is something you guys had said, and said, what a fantastic phrase. So you guys go ahead, and I'm going to find some more juicy tidbits because everybody's very excited and there are a lot of people watching. So I want to make sure we get to anybody's questions too. Now, tell me, do you have some other techniques that you use when you're starting to work with people? Or like, I'm trying to think, let's say if I'm watching this and I've never seen this before and I'm really just spent my whole life trying to avoid whatever childhood trauma and feelings that I have, and or maybe I'm in a depressive kind of anxious state now. What would be some good baby things? I think that checking in 3 times a day is a really good thing. Is there anything else you would suggest?
I like expressive writing at night or in the morning. You'll find a time where you can write for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you can put some of your deepest fears on this paper, your concerns. You can even put foods or cravings or things that you've done that you're so ashamed or embarrassed about. Maybe you did some type of binging, right? Write that on the top of the page, whatever that is. And then whatever flows, whatever thoughts, whatever feelings, just write them out. I'm such a bad person. I can't believe I did that. Whenever I think about it, I'm disgusted with myself. Write it all out. And then don't try to analyze it. Just write out until there's nothing left to write. And then shred the paper or burn it, or whatever you want to do with it. But don't keep reading it. Don't save it. You let that go, right? And to me, that's a very simple exercise that allows you to self-connect, and it particularly around pain that you've been suppressing, which is suppressing pain is pro-inflammatory, and it really gets in the way of your success.
And I think the key with expressive writing is to understand that it's not meant to fix the trauma. It's not meant to offer a solution. It's meant to release the things that we have buried so deep, that we have struggled to, that we work so hard, and it takes up so much mental and physical real estate to suppress that information down, and just to allow that to release and exit out of our system. That, we talked about signals of safety. That is another signal of safety, to just let it go, right? And that doesn't mean it goes away. It doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you forgive. It doesn't mean you have a solution, suddenly you're healed. But it is a beginning process of healing because, like Matt said, repression and suppression is part of that thing that keeps us in artificial harmony.
Yeah, think of it, can I be a little bit crass maybe? Think of it as go ahead. Thank you for the permission. Think of it as, every day you eat a high fiber, plant-based diet, you're moving your bowels every day, right? And that's really good for you. Think of it as an emotional bowel movement that you're taking. And it's not, this isn't the answer. It's not going to fix all your dreams, but it's really good to keep those bowels moving, right? And I think of thinking of it that way of, hey, I'm just cleaning house every day. I'm not suppressing because that's how I coped as a child, or that's what I was taught to do. I'm letting this stuff out. I don't need to be ashamed. And when you keep it in, you're telling yourself that stuff is dangerous. Don't share it, right? There's a threat if you share it. By putting it on paper, you tell your body, oh, that's not dangerous. That's not a threat. I don't have to be in high alert. I don't need to be inflamed, right? Because that's how our body responds to danger.
Another thing that we do, go ahead.
Okay. I love it because I was actually thinking of it in terms of vomiting, because I'm okay with pooping. I do it a lot. I'm whole food plant-based. That's part of our motto, right? We poop great. But I don't like vomiting, and actually I feel really weird when I do it. So it is kind of feeling a little weird getting it out, but then it's done. So I like that it's it made me nervous the whole time you were talking until you're then shred it and burn it, because I was oh, someone somewhere is going to see that, right? Because that was the first thing. And I love that that's part of the equation too. And I do believe that, and I forget where I've heard it, but you're only as sick as your darkest secret, right? Mm-hmm. Because when it's inside and it's something that's bad about you, which is one of the reasons I'm doing my McDougall journey, hey, I'm just me. I've always been me. I've been live for a long time. So I'm just going to tell the truth and tell what I'm doing. And people aren't all going to agree with me, and that's okay. But you know, Cheryl is also now doing some stuff online where she never did before. So we had a conversation. How okay are you with all the stuff being public, right? But you don't have to be public to still support yourself in getting some of that out. And I think writing is really amazing. Now, Apple said, I wonder how familiar these two doctors are with Richard C. Schwartz. I don't know who it is. And his internal family systems theory. And it says it's very similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, we really enjoy his work.
Okay.
And, you know, that's about the, you know, when we talked about the different parts of you and honoring and loving all of those parts, that's IFS aligned.
Okay, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it's very helpful to think of ourselves as such, right? So we are not just one way or another. There is a part of us that desires health. There's a part of us that desires pleasure. There is the part of us that desires ease. There's a part of us that desires adventure. And when we can kind of name and see all of those, there's a part of us that failed in our efforts to eat healthy yesterday. But that's not, we didn't fail as a person. That there is a part of us, and we're going to address that part because there are other parts of us that can kind of, for lack of a better word, keep us in line or keep us motivated or encouraged or bring us back to the path.
Right. And if you can look, that's what I like about nonviolent communication. If you can look at every action you do is to meet needs, there's always a good reason behind anything you do. So even when you're binging, there are needs you're trying to meet. Now, there may be needs that you're not meeting. There may be a high cost to that strategy of binging. But to have compassion that you're always trying to meet needs. So if you come at it with curiosity instead of judgment, blame, and shame, you can find out more effective, less costly ways of meeting that need in the future. So that is so helpful to think of it as that way. I'm just trying to meet needs, and I'm doing the best I can with the information and the awareness I have in this moment and the resources that are available to me in my capacity in this moment.
And I'm going to give an example. For example, you don't sleep one night, right? And you're worried, your head is busy, you don't get a good night's sleep, you wake up in the morning, and that lack of good sleep now has you feeling tired, you don't feel like exercising. When we don't sleep, we eat more calories. That's, studies show that we eat 300 or 400 more calories, and those calories are not healthy foods, right? But instead of beating ourselves up, we could take two paths. Oh, why didn't I get any sleep? Tonight, I have to get some sleep. I'm going to go sleep earlier. I'm going to try and get some sleep so things can change. That's one way to do it. And will we get to sleep? No, we're going to be just as busy. We're going to be just as worried. We're going to have just as hard a time, and we're going to go through that same cycle the next day. The other element is finding that compassion. What is the need? What is preventing me from sleeping? What need is not being met that is preventing me from sleeping? Can I address that in different ways? And how does that cycle through? Right? So let's say I'm really worried about X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to sit and do some expressive writing, or I'm going to breathe before bed, or I'm going to, take a walk before bed, or take a nice bath, or whatever that is to regulate and calm my system so that I can potentially get a better night's sleep. Getting a better night's sleep, I'm going to have more energy the next day. Having more energy the next day, I'm going to have more wherewithal to make the healthy decisions and the foods that I want to eat. And so it cascades.
And you can make more informed choices. Like at night, I know that if I watch a show before I go to bed, I take longer to fall asleep and I don't sleep as well. So now before I say, I really like this show, but how well do I want to sleep tonight? And then what I might say is, if I go to sleep now and I don't watch the show, I could watch the show. I'll get up earlier and I could watch the show for 30 minutes in the morning before I start my day. Now I got a good night's sleep and I can still watch my show. I just had to wait till the morning instead of that night. Now that's just a different strategy, and it's better able to meet my needs. Does that make sense? How?
That totally makes sense. And in fact, after the McDougall.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I unmuted on one side. I didn't unmute on this one. I said, so when we did the 12-day McDougall program, it was like from 10 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night for 12 days, which is, it's intensive, right? Even though you're just sitting there watching things. But when it was over, we were like, whoa, we're going to watch a bunch of TV. We can do whatever we want. I mean, we were still doing the McDougall program, but it was like, we are no longer shackled by these times that we have to sit in a chair. And we started going to bed much later, like way past my bedtime. Cheryl will sometimes stay up late, and we've been kind of going back. But I love that negotiation tactic, because like if she's still watching a show that we're watching, I'll say, I'll just catch up tomorrow, right? And so that really felt very true. And Marley, who's here, and yay, hey Marley, says, I like the journal idea. I read this tip from the kindness method to think about your day and what you know might come up in a day and pre-plan how you can deal with a stressful situation. And I think we're doing that a lot with the McDougall program, in that Cheryl used to never cook, but our oatmeal, she is oatmeal central. So at night, she slow cooks our oatmeal. And if it looks like the rice is getting low, she'll go put on some rice, so that we always have these things going and have the system. But I think it's I see how we're working together in this very similarly to kind of how you say sometimes there's like these two pieces of yourself that aren't always wanting to work together well. Because y'all are married. You know how married life can be. It's beautiful when it's beautiful, and it's a little tense when it's tense, right? Because everybody's normal people. No one's perfect. And so I've been struggling to get her to eat whole food, plant-based, no oil for a long time, and trying to actively do it. So I can see how I do that to myself. I'm actively trying to make something happen. But Cheryl went vegan talking to Josh LaJohnny. Wasn't me. She'd been eating vegan in the house for a decade, right? But he said some magic thing that slipped into her brain. Her sitting watching watching Dr. McDougall talk about, poison food and how you're not special. You're not fat because you're special, right? You don't have a giant stomach. You don't have a whatever. And that resonated with her. And so for me, it helps a little bit to see, because if you see bad Kathy and good Kathy, or disgruntled Kathy and happy Kathy, however it works for you to label them, because the one that's pushy and is always kind of sometimes getting me off track, that is also the Kathy that really protects me sometimes when I need it. And good Kathy's just going to stand there and take the punch. This Kathy's the one through life that did stuff. And so I think I love what you're talking about as far as like having these conversations with yourself and checking in. Dr. Lim turned me on to Ann Weiser Cornell. And I don't know if you've heard of her. I had never heard of her before. And you guys can go sign up for a 5-day free mailing thing. But here's the secret that she gives you for free. Anyhow, it's like you feel angry or you feel something and you go, something in me feels angry. And just that thing makes you not the anger anymore, which is kind of amazing. Like, and those of you who've been doing this for decades, you can feel that I'm a little silly, and that's okay, because I'm like, I've done lots of therapy, I've done lots of stuff, but I never really just thought to really make a delineation, oh, okay, I see you, what's going on, and because I'm a great helper. So I'm definitely the helper, people pleaser person, and so it worked really well for me. So I don't know if you guys have some other tools for how do you think of these different parts of yourself. Like, I love that we're journaling, we're checking in a little bit, and we're also kind of weighing our options, right? You know?
Yeah, and also we have a feelings and needs list. We have a resources tab on our website, WeHeal.Health, and there's a feelings and needs list. And if you can, every feeling that you have is connected to a need, right? Feelings let you know if needs are being met. You feel pleasant feelings. If needs are not being met, you feel unpleasant feelings. And connect. So when you're not sure, like you said, you have this voice that does things, and it's doing things that help you in a way that contribute and things that don't contribute anymore, even though it did in the past. Like you said, it protected you and it stands up for you, right? But it also is the one that will sometimes talk in a way that's not very life-serving or kind to yourself.
You guys
Right?
can't see it, but I am laughing because, yeah, no, that not kind. Not
Right.
kind at all. And I mean, some
Whoops, the
part of it is my profession. My past profession was I was a musician. And so we had a really, really hard, just stony-faced teacher. And so we would go in there and go, yeah, he said he wants me to play next to him in the orchestra because we're so good. Because we knew no one got a kind word in there. The kindest word I ever got was, you're not going to make your money playing solos. And it was like the biggest gigantic jump up and down moment. He thinks I'm going to make money at this. Because usually he's just like, no, you suck. Why don't you quit? You know, things like that. And so I have often been in male-oriented professions. I was also a web developer. And so not that all men necessarily talk that way, but it is happens a lot, right? That they're real tough and whatever. So a lot of times my voice, when it's trying to boss me around, is kind of doing that same kind of bossing around that's unpleasant.
Right. So if you notice that, and even can take a moment to either notice it in your head, write it down, and be like, oh, I wonder what need that voice was trying to meet, right? Protection, it's trying to contribute to your well-being, right? It wants you to be healthy. It wants you to meet your goals, right? There's a fear base too. It's trying security, right? Anytime there's perfectionism, it's fear-based mentality, right? Like I'm not perfect. Something bad's going to happen. So it's trying to protect you and help you feel secure. So it's a lot of wonderful needs it's trying to meet, but it's not meeting your need for compassion and kindness.
And there are so many tips and there are so many strategies. It's one of the things we're running a course in September about nutrition, lifestyle, and connection medicine. It starts the first week of September, and you can register for it on our website, WeHeal.Health. And it really goes into exactly these things, connecting to our needs, connecting to our feelings. How do we authentically check in with ourselves, kind of release and let go of that artificial harmony and tap into those different parts of ourselves? And what do we do in those times where we are in conflict with ourselves? How do we come from curiosity? How do we come from compassion? And then how do we then find the strategies that work for us?
I love that. So now tell me a little bit about the format of the class. Is it like videos of you guys, or is it Zooms where people are talking?
Yeah, it's a live webinar. It's once a week for 4 weeks. And Matt and I are going to be running it sometimes together, sometimes separately, but it will address all of these things, give opportunities for Q&A. And I think could really help shed light on how this piece of connection medicine really plays into our nutrition and lifestyle decisions, how we can regulate our system, how we can come back to that space of safety, how we can take those pauses, that allow us to show up the way that we want to make the decisions and live the life that in essence we want to, versus kind of go into our default modes and into the things we've done, up until now.
That sounds amazing. So also your book is Keep It Simple, Keep It Whole, Your Guide to Optimum Health. And that's come out pretty excellent.
And then we have Wellness, and Wellness to Wonderful just came out.
Okay. So you have two books.
The 9 pillars for living healthier, longer, and with greater joy. So that's the one that sort of brings together all the different pieces that we started to touch upon today.
That's
Right.
awesome.
So Keep It Simple is based a lot on nutrition and lifestyle. And then Wellness to Wonderful, which is our new book that just came out, really bridges nutrition, lifestyle, and connection medicine and how those all come together.
And that's the one we should buy if we love the talk today. That's the one we should get. Now, if I wanted to work with you guys, okay, so I know I can get your book. I know I can come to your class, which I'm going to talk to Cheryl about as soon as we're off here, actually, because you guys are super delightful. And really insightful. I think delightful lessens what you are. So let me come on here. Not delightful in that let's go have lunch, because I think you guys are great and you communicate so well and so clearly. But I think also what you talk about is very multi-layered and deep. So I love that you're going to have these live webinars to kind of open those up. You know what I mean? Because sometimes reading a book can give you some really good concepts, or listening to you today, I'm leaving here with some actionable information, but being able to spend 4 weeks with you guys. But do you work, like, are you people's physicians? How else do you tend to do your work?
Yeah, so people can also work with us individually if they want, and that's on the website as well. So we can work with them, health, coaching, we do it all. There's communication, there's, depending on the states, there's medical care, virtually. So there's a lot of different options for people.
And Apple says the September masterclass is super affordable, and that she's on disability benefits and she feels that it's affordable. She's the one who pointed that one out. I'm not just I feel weird not being able to put this one up on the screen. But Apple is always, she's awesome. So is there
if there was one thing I was, people ask us that at the end, and I just thought I wanted to share this. If there's one thing, it's about setting your intention, and NVC, Nonviolent Communication, is all about focusing on your need, knowing what that is, and then taking action to meet it, right? So you want to know what it is. So ask yourself, what can I do in the next hour, or in the rest of the day or the afternoon, that would have me dancing out the door, right? That would have me going to bed and saying, wow, that day was a great day. Even something as simple as that, adding one more thing, right? I thought about that, and I already did one thing today. I took the kids to the park before we dropped them off at the camp, and we get to swing and we're talking. And that's something that makes my day more wonderful. So I now make a point every morning when I can, instead of doing work, I'll go early to drop them off and take them to the park, and they have a great time. So that, to me, having that awareness is the key, because then I can be happier. I can have more joy.
I love that. And any other final things you guys want to talk about? Because I would love to keep you all day, but it wouldn't be fair to the world. Anything you want to sum up or mention? Or Alona, is there something that you've been doing, like, during your day that kind of helps make it better?
There are a couple things. I love music. So I notice that, when I'm down or when my energy is a little bit low, tuning into a really awesome song and either dancing by myself with my kids really keeps me dancing out the door. And I think that, to me, is it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a little thing that you can incorporate into your day. It could be a minute, it could be 5 minutes, but it's something that really lights you up.
I like that so much, and that's a great way to end with, because sometimes all you need is some clean sheets on the bed to make your whole day feel like a party. If you're me, I can be that boring. Or, like, if it's just nice enough for me to work outside on the deck, it feels just as good as if I had a whole vacation. And so thank you guys for getting me to think about these big feelings in these tiny packages, right? Because usually it's like when you get that little stabby feeling, the not pleasant feelings, and it's harder to make those go away sometimes, but it's really easy, if you're thoughtful about it, to make those joy feelings too. And I think that it can be a default to, I don't know how it works into, our whole fight or flight, but it's a lot easier to think about getting rid of the negative. Let me clean this off the floor instead of like, maybe all I need to do is clean the kitchen and I don't have to clean the floor in there today. So thank you for giving us all this information to think about and all these different perspectives, because I think for me in my life, learning a different way to look at something is when I've really made big shifts in my life. Because when you can see it just a little different than you saw it before. So I can't thank you guys enough for being on the show, and you're welcome to come back whenever you want. But everybody go to WeHeal.Health. Make sure you're looking for that, for the information and the resources. Sign up for the program if you can afford it. Take a look at their book. And I'm just thrilled that Lisa Rice introduced us and that you were willing to come on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, what a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, awesome. Well, hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon. So for everybody who's still watching, usually what I do is I ask everybody to do one, no matter how tiny, kind thing for themselves, because I know it's hard for me to do. And that kind thing could be literally asking someone to do your dishes, right? The bar is low with me. Sometimes just like going out and looking at my garden or something like that. So whatever, taking a bath, changing the sheets, whatever you got that tablespoon of energy left over for, if you have just a little bit more, be nice and kind to someone else. Just say hello or ask how someone is. Be nice to the cashiers. They're having a really rough time out there. People are so mean to them. And so one of the things I like to do when I get the reception, like I say, hey, how are you doing? And they're not all like, I'm not talking to you because you're going to do it too. When they feel okay, I'm like, I hope everyone who comes to your register is really nice for the rest of the day. And if they look like they've had a hard day, I'm like, if they're not, tell them Kathy Hester said they better be nice to you. So at least they know, just a little kindness. If you just can't deal with the peoples, I can be on team no peoples sometimes. Pet a dog. That's a win-win, right? Or a cat, unless you're allergic. Then just look at a TikTok of them, okay? You guys have an amazing rest of your day. Cheryl and I are going to come on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to answer your questions about our experience with the Dr. McDougall program and tell you where we are so far. So thank you all so much, and I will see you guys on